Welcome to another episode of Management Unplugged by Garang Rathod. And this is a book review of The Prophet by Kahlil Gibran.
Though maybe book review doesn't quite capture it. It feels more like we're diving into a pool of really timeless wisdom today.
That's a great way to put it. We're stepping into this poetic world Gibran created, looking at the Prophet, specifically the wisdom shared by al-Mustafa.
Right, al-Mustafa. He's this figure who's lived in the city of Orphalese for, 12 years?
12 years, yeah. And he's about to leave, get on a ship, and go home. But the people gather around him.
They want one last chance, basically, to hear his thoughts on, on everything important.
Mhm.
Life, love, work, the big stuff.
Exactly. And that's our mission for this deep dive. We want to unpack some of those core ideas, those philosophies, straight from the source.
And try to, translate some of that beautiful, sometimes quite dense poetry into something practical for today. See what insights still resonate.
So think of this as exploring those big questions al-Mustafa was asked and seeing what his answers might mean for us right now.
Okay, where should we start? There are so many themes.
Well, the seeress, Al-Mitra, she asks him first about love. Seems like a pretty fundamental place to begin, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And his response, it's not exactly straightforward, is it? He warns that love's path is hard and steep.
Right. It's not sentimental at all. He uses these really strong, almost challenging images.
He does, like, love will crown you, but also crucify you. It's for your growth, but also for your pruning.
It ascends to your heights, he says, but it also goes right down to your roots and shakes them loose.
Yeah, shaking them in their clinging to the earth.
Yeah.
And then he compares it to being like wheat threshed, ground, kneaded.
And then baked in a sacred fire. I mean, wow. That sounds pretty intense. Not exactly a walk in the park.
Definitely not. But he insists there's a purpose to this. This intensity is that you may know the secrets of your heart.
And through that knowledge, you become a fragment of life's heart. So love isn't just about finding someone else.
No, it seems to be this powerful catalyst for deep self-understanding and connecting to something much bigger than just yourself.
And then there's that line that really makes you stop and think, love gives naught but itself and takes naught but from itself.
Love possesses not, nor would it be possessed, for love is sufficient unto love.
That just completely flips how we often approach relationships, doesn't it? This idea that love isn't something you get or own.
Right. It's not transactional.
Yeah.
It's self-sufficient. You don't have love. Maybe you just participate in it.
He talks about being in the heart of God rather than trying to contain God within your own heart. It's a shifting perspective.
It suggests love is more like a state of being, something that radiates from you maybe, rather than something you acquire or hold on to.
And if you do have desires within love, the ones he lists are, well, they're kind of paradoxical.
Yeah, like to melt and be like a running brook, or to know the pain of too much tenderness.
Knowing the pain of too much tenderness, and then to be wounded by your own understanding of love, and to bleed willingly and joyfully.
Bleeding joyfully. It's certainly not the usual relationship goal.
No, definitely not. It points towards this deep vulnerability, doesn't it? A surrender. An openness to the hard parts just as much as the joyful ones.
Waking with a winged heart, resting in ecstasy, gratitude, prayer. It paints a picture of love as this all-encompassing spiritual practice almost.
So what does this ask of us today? In our modern world, our relationships?
Well, I think it challenges our focus on just comfort, or security, or what we can get out of a relationship. It suggests maybe the real depth comes from embracing the transformation, even the painful bits, the crucifying and pruning he talks about.
Focusing more on the love emanating from you, perhaps, rather than trying to control or receive love.
Yeah, leaning into that vulnerability, that feels like the core message for love.
Okay, so from the heart, let's move to the hands. The plowman asks al-Mustafa about work.
Yes, work. Something that, for many people today, feels like a grind, or totally separate from their real life.
But Gibran's take is very different. He says work isn't a curse. It actually keeps you in pace with the earth and the soul of the earth. It connects you.
It's part of the rhythm of life.
Right.
And then he makes this crucial point, work is empty.
Save when there is love.
Exactly. And that feels, pretty radical today. We measure work by tasks, by hours, by money. But he says its real value is in the love you bring to it.
Working with love, he says, binds you to yourself, to others, and even to God.
The descriptions are so vivid. It is to weave the cloth with threads drawn from your heart.
It is to build a house with affection. It is to sow seeds with tenderness and reap the harvest with joy. It's beautiful language.
And leads to that famous line, work is love made visible.
Yeah, that really sums it up. Your work isn't just what you produce, it's an outward sign of your inner state, the care you put in.
And the flip side is pretty stark too. Working with distaste, baking bitter bread, distilling poison in the wine.
He suggests it's actually harmful. Not just bad work, but it poisons things. He even says it's better to just leave that kind of work, sit at the temple gate and take alms from those who work with joy.
Wow. So how do we apply that today? If you're stuck in a job you don't love or facing a task that feels meaningless,
Well, maybe it's about shifting the focus, not necessarily changing the job, but changing the approach. Trying to consciously bring care, intention, or, well, love to it.
right? Focusing on the process and the spirit you bring, not just the outcome. It's less about finding a job you're passionate about, maybe, and more about bringing passion to the job you have.
He uses that analogy of the wind, doesn't he? It speaks just as sweetly to the tiny blades of grass as to the giant oaks.
And greatness isn't the oak itself, but turning the wind's voice into a song made sweeter by his own loving.
So greatness in work isn't about the status or the scale. It's about the quality of love you infuse into it, no matter how small the task seems.
It feels like a really powerful way to think about reconnecting with our work, finding meaning, even in the mundane, perhaps, an antidote to that feeling of just churning things out.
Definitely. Okay, so we've touched on love and work. What about freedom? An orator asks him about that.
Freedom, another huge topic today, usually framed in terms of, liberties, freedom from external constraints.
But Gibran again turns it inward. He starts with this really striking image. People worshiping their freedom like slaves before a tyrant, or wearing it like a yoke and a handcuff.
It's deliberately provocative, isn't it?
Yeah.
It makes you question, wait, is the thing I call freedom actually trapping me somehow?
He argues true freedom isn't about getting rid of all your cares or wants. It's about rising above them, naked and unbound, even when they're still there.
So it's not about changing the external world to remove the chains.
It's about changing your internal state so the chains just don't bind you in the same way. He says what we often call freedom is actually the strongest of these chains.
Why do you think he says that? That our idea of freedom can be the biggest chain?
Maybe because focusing so much on escaping external limits stops us from seeing the internal ones, the ones we build ourselves.
That seems to be his point. He directs us inward. The unjust laws, the written on your own forehead. The tyrant. His throne is erected within you.
Your cares are chosen by you, he says. Your fear is seated in your heart, not in the thing you're afraid of. Oof, that's confronting.
It really is. It places the responsibility and the power firmly back inside us. The real prison bars are our own fears, attachments, limiting beliefs. Liberation has to start there.
And then there's that other paradox he throws in. Your freedom, when it loses its fetters, becomes itself the fetter of a greater freedom.
What does that even mean? Like you break free from one thing only to find another deeper chain.
Maybe it means freedom isn't a destination. Like you don't just achieve freedom and you're done. It's this ongoing process of shedding layers of internal work.
A continuous unfolding. That makes sense. So for us today, with all the external pressures, the social media comparisons, the demands,
How does this apply?
well, it asks us to pause, right? Look inside. Are we chasing external freedom? Maybe more money, more status, fewer rules, while still being totally chained up by our own anxiety? Or our fear of what others think? Or just our attachment to comfort?
Yeah.
Gibran suggests the real way to be free from those external pressures is to dismantle the internal stuff that gives them their power over us in the first place.
It really challenges that modern, almost purely external definition of freedom. It says the deepest liberation work is internal.
And you see this thread running through everything he talks about, don't you? Joy and sorrow being inseparable, houses being masts, not anchors, beauty being life unveiling itself.
We only really dug into love, work, and freedom here, but the pattern seems consistent.
Yeah, the answers always point back inside, to our internal state, the spirit we bring, rather than just focusing on fixing the external circumstances. That seems to be the core of Elvis Stoffa's message.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into the Prophet, let's leave you with a final thought to chew on. Something provocative.
In his farewell, Al-Mustafa says two things that feel connected. First, that which seems most feeble and bewildered in you is the strongest and most determined.
And second, there are no graves here. These mountains and plains are a cradle and a stepping stone.
So the question to ponder is, What if you looked at your perceived weaknesses? Those moments of confusion, maybe even your failures,
What if you didn't see them as endings or signs you're not good enough?
but instead saw them as hidden strengths? Or maybe just necessary steps, like that stepping stone idea. Transitions, not finalities. What might change if you viewed your struggles that way?
It's a powerful reframing. This exploration of the prophet has definitely given us a lot to think about, this poetic, profound take on living fully. We really encourage you to reflect on these ideas yourself.
See where that internal exploration might lead you. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
See you later. Bye-bye.